Traders, how are you? Marcello here, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader, where you guys can come and apply to trade with our money for just the process of 120 bucks. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week, today 17th of February. So overall, super excited. This weekend we have our yearly seminar for all of our traders at Day Trading Academy. I'm here in Tampa, Florida, my beautiful mom's house, so you guys can see her right behind me. Overall this week we had the major thing really that affected a lot of the markets this week was the overall optimism on the China and US EU trade talks, Let me say that again, China and US, not EU, so China and US trade talks, and also the US government shutdown was averted since they made an agreement, and I'll go ahead and mention a little bit of the details of that as well. Overall for the week, the US indices are higher. The Dow, one of the main indexes in the US, is up 2.85%. The S&P 500 is up 2.29%. And the NASDAQ is up 2.21%. Overseas market news, again, same thing with the US and China trade talks. Obviously that affects everybody. And there was also strong earnings that had European shares hit a 3-month high on Thursday. Overall, the European markets are higher. The biggest winner is Paris SAC or CAC or COC. Not, you guys know what I mean. If you guys are listening to the podcast, that definitely didn't sound okay. So you guys know what I mean. I'm trying to make a little fancy French accent there. That one was up 30.85%. The Latin American markets for the week are mixed. The Brazilian Bovespa was the biggest winner at 2.23%, and the Mexican exchange was down 0.85%, the biggest loser. Overall, the Asian markets were mixed as well. The Japanese Nikkei was the biggest winner at 2.79% positive, and the India Sensex was down 2.06%. Big news in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency news. So don't forget, subscribe here to the channel. If you guys are on the podcast, go ahead and leave me a review on iTunes or wherever you guys listen. Obviously, that helps out because you guys know that it is available now. But one of the things that I would like to mention when I do these videos is, first, I'm never going to get political, right? So it doesn't matter if you love or hate Obama, love or hate Trump, love or hate Clinton, doesn't matter what side you're on. I think when it comes to economics, we're all affected, and at the end of the day, it's just a matter of the facts, right? So what I like to do with these videos is I like to explain you guys and show you guys how the dots connect so you guys can understand how things work. So one of the biggest things I always tell you guys is don't pay attention to what they say, pay attention to what they do, right? Because most of the news, I wouldn't recommend any of you guys paying attention to any news because they just present what their opinion of what the facts are rather than just the facts. And so JP Morgan on Thursday said it was going to launch its own digital coin, cryptocurrency, blockchain, right? Their own digital coin called the JPM coin. Well, that's just a year after the CEO Dimon bashed Bitcoin as a fraud and also said that it wasn't going to end well for investors. At the same time that he was calling Bitcoin a fraud, it was discovered that Chase, the company, biggest bank in the US that he's the CEO of, was buying Bitcoin-linked ETNs traded out of a Scandinavian exchange. Same thing with silver. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember 3 or 4 years ago, governments, they don't want you to buy gold and silver essentially because at the end of the day, for thousands of years, that's the only thing that has been counted as money. The money that we use today, the dollar, the euro, it's backed by confidence. As soon as the confidence is over, then the money is worthless. It's literally just the same as a regular piece of paper, right? You can just hold up a white notebook paper and a $1 or $100 bill and it's worth the same because the difference is confidence. Look at what happens, for example, if you guys want to look this up, the dollar in Zimbabwe. They sell $1 trillion notes as commemorative tourist items. I bought one. Bolivia, the same thing. Venezuela, the same thing with the Bolivar. They have the record inflation in the history of the world. So, at the end of the day, with these few years ago, Jamie Dimon was saying, oh no, gold isn't what you should buy, this and that. Meanwhile, his company Chase, same thing, they've been buying and hoarding silver coins in a vault, and in the middle of a bank vault, probably one of their own. But it just goes to show the hypocrisy in a lot of these reporters and people that are kind of in the media, right? And what I like to do these videos to kind of show you guys the difference and kind of have you guys pay attention to what is actually happening, because I've been telling you guys about this crisis that's coming for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Now everybody's talking about it, and even the governments don't want to admit it, right? Everything is great. Obviously Trump right now, who's in office, is in power, doesn't want anything bad to happen under his watch. Overall for the week, Bitcoin gained 2.34%. It went up to 3,568.71. No recovery yet, as the experts are still predicting. In financial news, the national debt hit a new milestone. It topped 22 trillion for the first time. It stood at 19.95 trillion when Trump took office in 2017. U.S. Treasuries mostly higher for the week. Remember the lesson that I gave you guys between the short-term and the long-term rates. Let me kind of get the camera here. The short-term and the long-term rates, where if the short-term rates and the long-term rates begin to squeeze, and they actually invert, where the short-term rate is higher than the long-term rate, that's a very, very good indication of a recession, and they're continuing to narrow. The percentage between the 3-month and the 2-year is only 0.10, and between the 10-year and the 30-year is about 0.44. They continue to get squeezed. Commodities, Goldman Sachs doubles down on its bullish outlook for oil as it forecasts Brent crude is going to hit $67.50 a barrel in Q2. They're saying that this is going to be driven by strong demand and supply curbs by OPEC and Russia. It's about 7% higher than current price levels. And an IMF official said that the world's largest exporter, Saudi Arabia, needs about $80-85 a barrel to battle its budget. If you guys see what's happening with OPEC, they keep trying to cut production. Meanwhile, demand really isn't there, right? I think this is going to happen short term, not necessarily long term, what Goldman Sachs says. But the demand is either the same or maybe just a little bit higher, not really that much because we're walking into a recession. But long term, the demand isn't going to be there, and the production from Russia and the U.S. continues to explode, right? Now the U.S. is the largest producer of oil in the world, which they weren't before. There was always Saudi Arabia and then Russia, now it's the U.S. So I'm going to go on one of my little predictions here. Probably going to see something, happen with a tanker, maybe a terrorist attack or something along those lines in the Middle East somewhere, an accident, and that'll definitely send oil prices surging. Overall for the week, U.S. crude went up 4.99% to $55.35. International Brent crude went up 6.09% to $65.89. Gold and silver prices moderately lower, trading in the U.S. trading on Monday. The U.S. dollar hit a 7-week high overnight, and the bearish outside market force working against precious metals markets is affecting that. Essentially, if you guys don't know, for the most part, silver and gold are mostly traded in dollars. They're now starting to open over the markets in places like Singapore, but they're mostly traded in dollars. So if the dollar gets really, really strong, the relation to gold and silver is going to go down, right? So the price is going to be kind of held in check. Gold overall for the week went up 0.53% to $1,322, and silver went down 0.32% to about $1,585. Closed a really nice position in gold and in silver last week. U.S. lawmakers reached a deal for to avert another budget shutdown. Trump wanted $5.7 billion for his wall. He only got $1.38 billion, and he signed the bill. He's going to sign the bill, or I should say probably already signed the bill, and he is going to declare a national emergency to try to go ahead and build the rest of the wall. U.S. labor unions are withholding support for the new Green New Deal unveiled by Democrats last week. They want to transition the U.S. economy away from fossil fuels, including getting rid of cows because they fart too much, and getting rid of things like airplanes. And they're arguing, the labor unions are arguing that the loosely defined plan is going to kill out a lot of jobs. Thailand's election panel disqualifies the sister of the king for running for prime minister. It puts a short-lived attempt by her and echoes the king's words of Thailand, saying that royalty should be above politics. New leader of the Germany ruling party, the I shouldn't say ruling party, I should say ruling Christian Democrats. I'm going to butcher this name. Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. I kind of said that Latin way, but you guys get my drift. She's the person that replaced Angela Merkel. And she's unveiling plans for a tightening of immigration rules, and changes for Germany and all of Europe are coming soon for migration outside of the EU. And Egyptian parliament on Thursday approved in principle proposed constitutional amendments to allow the current president Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to stay in power until 2034 and boost his control of the judiciary. I didn't sleep that much, so you can see I'm mumbling my words a little bit. Other than that, the UK economy in the quarter 4 of 2018 only grew 0.2% versus quarter 3. Rate of expansion for the full year was 1.4%, which is down from 1.8 in 2017. Obviously, there's a big concern over Brexit, what's going to happen with that. It's less than 50 days away. It's increasingly looking likely that Europe is going to be the biggest threat to global growth as well. It saw an annual fall of 2.7% in industrial production in December 2018, which is the weakest pace since the financial crisis, 2008-2009. And Germany also almost avoided posting official recession, which are 2 negative quarters in a row. They grew an amazing 0% in quarter 4 in 2018. Their yearly growth was 1.5%, and the economists are hopeful that the economy are going to recover its momentum in 2019, but obviously there's a lot of risks that remain. There's a company called Kering, which is the owner of Yves Saint Laurent and other companies like Gucci. They reported strong sales on Tuesday, driven mostly by a growth in Asia. The revenue increased by 26% in 2018. It's about $15.4 billion. And obviously what it means is luxury still sells in China. Shares of Heineken, which is the second largest brewer in the world, went up 5% after the company reported earnings. They said that they saw sales growth of 6% and also saw huge results from their flagship brand Heineken. Airbus shares went up 5%. They announced the end of that massive A380 program. The A380 jet is the double-decker, the really big jet. Airbus profits grew 30% over the previous year in 2018. Coca-Cola had its worst day since October 2018, plunging 8%. Company said that in the earnings report that sales declined 10% in 2018, and it issued disappointing guidance for 2019. In technology, as products from companies like Impossible Foods, Beyond Meat, and other startups go mainstream, there's a lot of ranchers, farmers, and also industry groups that are trying to slow the momentum of lab-grown and plant-based meat alternatives. Amazon and General Motors are in talks to invest in a company called Rivian Automotive. They want to be the first company to come out with an electric pickup. They want to, if they invest, it's going to be valued at about $1 to $2 billion. The number of jobs in the U.S. solar industry dropped by 3.2% in 2018. It's a second year of losses. Obviously, this is affected because of the Trump tariffs. If you guys don't know what a tariff is, it's essentially when, let's say I'm going to buy a product from China, the government puts an extra, impuesto in Spanish, an extra tax on any products coming from a certain country. So obviously those tariffs that Trump placed on a lot of different countries, more than anything China, and also state level policy changed the demand for the installations as well. Spain is aiming to close all of its 7 nuclear plants by between 2025 and 35, as it plans to generate all its electricity from renewable sources. They also want to get rid completely of petrol, diesel, and hybrid cars in 2040. They only want to be able to have electric, or should say cars that run on the renewable energy. Apple has sharply increased its effort to test self-driving cars on public roads. The disengagement rates are still really high due to the fact, if you guys don't know what that means, basically they're testing it. You know, the way that it works is if you just sit in a car and the car drives itself, if you have to grab the wheel, that means that it's in disengagement, right? So the autonomous technology of the car disengages, and then the driver grabs the wheel or helps the car, needs it to do whatever it needs it to do. So even though Apple has tested or started to test these cars, they're still well behind the market leader, which is Waymo, which is owned by Google. Chinese automakers have been selling a lot of the mini electric vehicles to the rest of the world. They are going to start selling these in Europe and the United States. They're valued at $9,000, which is probably going to be a big splash because it's not very expensive. U.S. small business optimism tumbled last month on its lowest level since Trump's election over 2 years ago amid growing concerns over the economic outlook. EU is rewriting 2 decades-old copyright rules. Are going to force Google and Facebook to share revenue with creative industries and remove copyright-protected content on YouTube or Instagram. Juan Guaido, which is the leader of the General Assembly, the opposition to the current President Maduro, is trying to take control of the company Citgo, which is an American company owned by Venezuela. And they want to be able to take control of that to be able to obviously try to oust Maduro. Apple's Chinese smartphone shipments dropped 20% in Q4 in 2018, largely attributed to the higher price of the iPhone. It shows the scale of retreat, and also the percentage of the market has dropped, especially in China, with other Chinese makers like Huawei coming in and snapping up that market share. Mexico President López Obrador is saying that he wants to try to renegotiate or try to sign contracts with private energy firms that is going to not hike the electricity prices for people. Amazon buys a company called Arrow, a developer of easy connected home internet routers. It's the latest push of them trying to control and spy on everything you do in your home. Alibaba's Ant Financial has agreed to buy British payments group World First for $700 million. It's the biggest push yet by a Chinese company buying a Western company. You guys can see how the Chinese are literally taking over. In international events, the senior Revolutionary Guards commander says that Iran would demolish cities in Israel if the U.S. attacked the Islamic Republic. Not clear if they do have the ability to do so. 12 Catalan separatist leaders are going to go on trial in Madrid. If you guys don't know, Catalan is the area in Barcelona. Barcelona is the capital of that state. It's like Texas, kind of, right? They kind of are very regionalistic. And so they're holding 12 of these separatist leaders on trial over the roles of the independence bid in 2017. U.S. is demanding Iraq ends its purchases of energy from Iran after pulling out from the energy deal and reapplying sanctions. Iraq says that it's not possible due to the fact that they rely too much on Iran for the electric and natural gas needs. And also, Russian authorities and major internet providers are planning to disconnect the internet in Russia. That's definitely okay. Disconnecting the internet in Russia is part of a planned experiment. The reason they say is to gather insight and provide feedback and modification to a new proposed law. The world's insects are heading to extinction. They're saying that over 40% of the insects in the world are declining and 1/3 are endangered. The rate of extinction for insects are 8 times faster, I should say, than mammals, birds, and also reptiles. They're saying that this is going to be a catastrophic collapse for the nature's ecosystems. News emerges that Qatar may have unwittingly bailed out a New York skyscraper last year that was being built by Trump's son-in-law. 12 years ago, a Chicago banker called Roger Weston sold his family bank and retired. There was a fortune of $200 million. The guy's financial manager went on an extraordinary 10-year crime spree, stole at least $65 million. It's a lesson that, keep an eye on your money, especially if you guys work very hard for it. Air pollution in 39 major northern cities rose 16% year on year in January, with surging industrial activity, making it increasingly unlikely they're going to need their winter emission targets. Because remember, everybody signed the Paris Accord that Trump came out of. Ironically enough, if you guys look at the numbers, the U.S., if I'm not mistaken, in 2017 or 18, had the biggest drop in emissions in the world. Also, world famous cartel boss El Chapo was sent to jail. They're confirmed by a court, and now Ted Cruz and other people are lobbying to try to get those $14 billion to be able to construct for the wall. That's the news this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to put the name, the hashtag AskMarcello for all your questions. And also, don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next week.